Good morning. My lecture today is going to be on Chapter 7. My name is Yesenia Alamo. To begin with, technology is a great tool that helps us find information across the web and help us achieve success in all of our classes. Although, most of the time, it eats up hours and hours of our time. I know most of us spend hours disassociated in our phones and we don't realize how many hours have passed by. Now, no one is born with tech skills. This is something that we develop over time. Here are a few ways that we access tools in our classes. We use a lot of course websites in our classes, such as Word and Google Docs and stuff. Textbook companion sites are stuff like McGraw-Hill and stuff like that. There's podcasts and blogs, which is to listen and to receive information. Classroom presentations and lecture technology are all stuff that helps us learn in school. And when it comes to using the web, email, text messages, and videos are the main resources. Now, when emailing, it's really important to stay respectful and to use great grammar. When emailing, we have something called the mailbox name, which is the name that you create assigned to you. There is something called a domain name, which is basically the place that you're emailing from. For example, there's Gmail, there's Yahoo. Emailing is very important in college because with emailing, we contact our professors and receive information from the college and etc. When emailing, there is a lot of clear rules that we should all follow. To begin with, use the subject line. It's important that whoever you are sending an email to knows what your email is going to be about, how urgent it is. Now, you can't obviously demand, this is very urgent, you have to respond now. You can't do that because that's disrespectful to your professor. No one wants to be talked to like that. But just make clear what your email is going to be about. Make sure your recipient knows who you are. Make sure you put your name in the email because a lot of us have emails that do not include our name in it. Always check your grammar and spelling and keep your emails short and focused. Your professor or whoever you're sending an email to does not want to read 18 pages long email. Make it short and clear. Just write a summary of what it is that you need to say. Try to include only one major topic per email, because you can't just bombard them with information either. That's just not right. Make sure that any requests you have while emailing are at the beginning of the email to make it less messy. Try not to put so many attachments when emailing, because if you put so many attachments, it's going to be very difficult to send and to read. Avoid abbreviations when emailing, because you cannot be saying LOL or ASAP. You cannot say that to your professor. That's just not professional. Now we're going to talk about showing online civility. You should never ever write anything that you will regret in the future. You also should not write anything that you would not say in person. So try to think of what you're going to say before you say it. Be careful of your tone. It's really hard to convey your tone through an email, so make sure you're just straight to the point and clear. Do not write in all caps. Just because you're upset or angry, that's not how you write an email to someone. Make sure to be polite as always. That's something that I keep saying. Being polite is very important. And do not send an email when you are angry. That is the most important thing. We think impulsively when we're angry, so we should not be sending emails. So now we're going to talk about the differences of being on a in-person class and being on a online class. So when you're in person, it's important to have your cell phone off while your professor or whoever is lecturing or talking. When anyone is talking, you should not be on your phone. You should not be texting. That is just manners and respect. Make sure to stay on task. If you are taking notes on your laptop while you're in an in-person class, make sure to stay on task and do not get distracted and start texting on your laptop or switching tabs and going to play a game. The important thing is that even though you have technology with you, it's important not to cheat and to send someone else answers. The thing I'm going to talk about is on your emails, you have to be very careful of spam and scam emails. You have to make sure that you do not click any emails from someone you do not recognize. Do not click any attachments from them because this can lead to your computer getting a virus. If so, try and download an antivirus website or something similar to that. Never give your personal information or passwords to someone you don't know through an email. Another important thing is that maybe you should have 2 emails, because that way you can separate your college stuff with your personal information. That way it's not so messy and disorganized. When you're on social media or in your phone, it's important to be safe. So as I said before, do not send anything to strangers. That's like one of the most important things. Do not send your personal info to them or post personal info when you know there's people who follow you who are not your friends. Never respond to offensive or weird emails because those are most likely scams. And if you feel really threatened, you should contact your college or call the police. If you're planning on meeting an online friend, you have to be cautious. Go somewhere in a public space or take a friend with you because we do not want a problem. When you're on social media, like I said before, do not post something that you wouldn't want your professors or your family or parents to see. Make sure to use privacy and security since you know you have access to it, just as making your account private. Now we're going to move on to distance learning. So some distance learning that we do is Zoom, Google Class, Teams, etc. There's a lot of other ones, but those are just the main ones. Distance learning is an asynchronous, which means that you are doing the work on your own. Distance learning has a lot of pros, such as using videos instead of long lectures. You manage the time on your own, so you get to choose your own schedule. And it also gives you habits for learning how to email and speaking to someone online like how you would when you have a job in the future. Now, when choosing an online course, it's important to prepare and to research before you choose an online course and make sure that it'll align with your schedule and you have enough time for it. Something you can do is maybe talk to someone who's taken the course before you choose it, because they can give you advice and what is going to happen throughout the semester. The next thing you need to do is organize. You need to make sure, obviously, that you have access to internet and computer all the time. You always have to have a backup as well because you never know what's going to happen. Before you begin your class, you have to make sure that you're comfortable with the website that they're using, such as Canvas or Blackboard. Next is work. You have to participate in your online class. Just because it's online does not mean that you cannot participate. You must complete your assignments on time. It's okay to let your instructor know if you're confused about something. You cannot be shy just because it's online. Be respectful to your peers when they're talking. In a discussion when you're responding, respond respectfully. If someone in your class is speaking, use the raise your hand feature and then wait your turn. Don't be shy to ask for help from your peers and your professor. The next thing you need to do is evaluate. You need to take back feedback that you received from your classmates and from your teacher. And lastly, you need to rethink. Reflect on what you've learned about distance learning. Shy students may find it easier to speak up in class since there's no pressure. It has more flexibility and is self-paced. It has more contact with the instructor since they are always online. Now, distance learning does have a few challenges, such as depending on technology not everyone has access to. There is no face-to-face contact, so there is kind of less of a connection with the student-teacher. It requires a lot of discipline and responsibility for the student. Not everyone has the discipline to stay on task. Lastly, we're going to move on to information literacy. Information literacy is required to know necessary information and how to use it. We use mainly the web and libraries to access our information. The web is the resource that most of us use as we all have technology around us. We use the web to ask simple questions like for the weather. We use it to access our homework, to speak to our professors, and so much more. Well, let's learn a little bit about the web. The web has browsers. Browsers are programs like Chrome, Safari, Firefox. These are just ways to access web pages. Speaking of web pages, web pages are the heart of the web. It is a document that presents you with information, such as a video, a text, pictures as well. Now, something that is often in websites are links. Links are addresses that take you directly to a different website. So it takes you from site to site instantly. The last vocabulary we have for the web is a search engine. Search engines are stuff we commonly use, such as Google, such as Bing, such as Google Scholar, and PsycInfo. So let's learn how to be a good surfer throughout the web. Before you type anything on the web, you need to ask yourself what you are asking. You cannot go in there without knowing. Choose the most appropriate search engine for what you want to find, such as you can use Google if you're trying to find something more specific or informative. Use Google Scholar or info. Use minimal words, but be very specific. There's also ways, you can minimize the results. So use plus or minus to limit what the results are. The next thing you should do is open another tab and search the same question you want to ask in a different way to try and get different results. The next thing you should do is compare both of the results and save your information. The next thing you need to do is determine if you have found your answer to your question, if you have all your information. You need to evaluate the information and make sure you're not missing any important details and save your work, and that is it. So something that's really important is evaluating your information to know if it's real or if it's fake. You need to ask yourself, how authoritative is the info? You need to consider who published this article, who is the author. Usually professional websites have edu or org at the end of it, and they also have very popular authors that you will recognize. So you'll know if the information is more accurate if they have more commonly known authors. Usually that information is more correct. You need to ask yourself, how well are the claims documented? And one of the things that happen a lot is people try and look up stuff on Facebook or Instagram, and what happens is something called echo chamber, which basically those social media sites show you what you look up the most, so it's kind of biased information. So it shows you information that you most likely will like. Try not to look up anything on any of those sites. The last thing we're going to talk about today are college libraries, which provide lots of important information in person and through technology. They allow you to search material from around the world in cyberspace. So libraries provide books, of course. They provide periodicals, which are newspapers, specialized journals for professionals, and magazines. We have encyclopedias and handbooks, which are kind of overviews of it, which although handbooks are a little bit more specific. There's government docs, there's photos, maps, and artworks. And some libraries have special collections, such as original newspapers from historical events through time. There's also reserve collections, which instructors reserve for their class. A very important thing to research before you go to a library or when you're at a library are library catalogs, which show you everything that they have. It shows you what special collections they have, what books they have, or what artworks they have access to. Librarians are very important, and a lot of people don't realize how important they are and how useful they can be. They can provide you with recommendations of where to find a specific book you're looking for, or guide you throughout the library, or help give you information themselves. Be sure that if you're asking a librarian a question, to ask very specific questions so they can find you an accurate answer. Here are a few questions we could ask ourselves regarding this lecture. How can we ensure that we are sending polite and respectful emails to our professors? What are a few ways that we can enforce this? Another important question is, how does distance learning give us advantages in our college life? And how does distance learning provide us with more time management? And lastly, why is making sure your websites and your articles are accurate when providing information? That's all for my presentation. Thank you so much.